For years, I've been hearing about how walking is one of the best exercises on the planet, but I was skeptical over all the hype. So I decided to try the viral challenge of walking 10,000 steps every single day for 30 days to see if it was worth it or not. And by day 30, I had a very clear answer, one that I honestly wasn't expecting.
You have got to be kidding me. How is this possible? Oh, I'm so mad at myself right now.
Hi there, friend, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Marissa, and this is A to Zen Life, where we talk about the A to Z of simplifying your way to a happier, healthier, and wealthier life. And I'm a firm believer that even the simplest habits can lead to life-changing results. But one habit I've always struggled with is being consistent with my exercise routine. For years, I got stuck in this loop of saying I was going to get in the best shape of my life only to give up and quit when things got tough. But of course, like most people, I always had really good excuses as to why I wasn't able to achieve my goals. Last year, it was because I embarrassingly threw out my back trying to move a heavy planter. Help! I've fallen and I can't get up. The year before that, it was because we bought a new house that we had to renovate and furnish and whatnot. And then the year before that, it was because my husband lost his job and we had to repatriate back to the USA after living in Europe for 4 years, which obviously took a lot of planning and was a huge life adjustment for our entire family. But one thing I always preach on this channel is that, as a rule, if you want to change your life, at some point you need to stop waiting for the right time and get up off your and make time instead. So this year I decided to take my own advice, and for 30 days I committed to getting in at least 10,000 steps every single day. But because we live in Chicago, the weather didn't always feel like cooperating with me during this challenge.
Okay, looks like I just hit 10,000 steps. The snow is melting, so that's great. I love how even the ducks are like, heck, let's get out of here. This is too darn cold. Oh, hello, little duckies. Are you freezing your tails off too?
So I knew I would need to find other ways to get my daily steps in on the days the weather was bad. So besides my outdoor walks, which I mainly took with my husband, I also used a walking pad at my desk a lot on the days I was busy or had a lot of videos to edit, and I got a lot of my steps in at the gym, as well as some other, shall we say, unexpected places. So today is the 9th day of my steps challenge, and I was in the neighborhood close to the mall running an errand, and I thought, since I'm here, why not just drop by the mall and try to get a few extra steps in? So I walked around the mall a little bit, and it has a couple levels, and so far I'm just almost at 6,000 steps, so I think I'm gonna hit my steps pretty easily. There were some days I walked more and some days I walked less, but even when the weather was bad and on the days I didn't feel like it, I promised myself I was going to get up off my butt and hit that magical number of 10,000 steps. But wait, where did this 10K steps idea come from anyway? So as it turns out, the history behind the 10K Steps Challenge is kind of wild, because it actually started as a marketing campaign that originated in Japan. So the lore here is that in 1965, a Japanese company released one of the first pedometers called the manpoke, which literally translates to 10,000 step meter. And the reason they landed on that 10K number wasn't because of decades of medical research, but because it was catchy, memorable, and because the Japanese character for 10,000 kind of looks like a little person walking. True story, I actually looked into buying one of the original manpoke pedometers for this challenge because I'm extra like that. But when I looked to buy one on eBay, I couldn't find one in working condition, which begs the question, how was I going to track my steps for this challenge? Another thing you should know about me is that I'm a huge data nerd and I love habit tracking. So after a ton of research, I landed on 3 solid options for making sure I was hitting my goal of 10,000 steps a day. Option A, which was my phone, option B, which was my husband's Apple Watch, and option C, an actual pedometer. All of these options have pros and cons, but after experimenting a bit, I realized I didn't want to carry my phone around in my pocket all the time to keep track of my steps, because not only did I find it heavy and uncomfortable, but I realized that not all of the clothes that I was going to be wearing had the right kinds of pockets for schlepping around a phone. My husband was also happy to lend me his Apple Watch for the purpose of this challenge, but after doing some research, I realized that might not be the best option because it probably wouldn't capture all the steps I was walking when I was using the walking pad at my desk, since my arms would be resting on a flat surface there. So in the end, I decided to go with a modern pedometer, and other than forgetting to put it on a few times after I had changed my pants, I found it a really convenient and accurate way to keep track of my steps.
Okay, turns out I spoke too soon because this actually happened to me the other day.
I almost dropped my pedometer into the toilet at the gym. Oh my gosh.
So I guess my advice is that if you're going to wear your pedometer on the waistband of your athletic pants, make sure that you take it off whenever you have to use the bathroom.
But here's the thing, I didn't just want to track my steps, I wanted to track what all of this walking was actually doing to my body. Because hitting 10,000 steps is great, but if your goal is to get in shape and after all of that walking, nothing changes internally, what's the point? So before I started this challenge, I went to my doctor's office and did an in-body scan, which if you've never heard of it before, it's basically a super detailed body composition test that doesn't just tell you your weight, but tells you things like how much skeletal muscle mass you have, your body fat percentage, and even your basal metabolic rate.
Why is it that every time I go to a doctor's appointment, it's always snowing? When I'm old and retired, I'm definitely moving someplace where it does not snow.
And even though my main goal for this challenge wasn't really to lose weight, I kept weighing myself every single morning because I had a hunch that the numbers the scale was showing me might not be a good representation of the whole picture of my health. And it turns out I was right about that, but we'll get to those results later. So after doing that in-body scan at my doctor's office, I got a nice paper printout, and here are the before results from that in-body scan. My total body weight was 131.3 pounds, and keep in mind this is after eating breakfast and going to weigh myself. My skeletal muscle mass was 52.5 pounds, and my body fat mass was 35.8 pounds, putting me at a total body fat percentage of 27.3%. And then as far as that basal metabolic rate that I mentioned earlier, I learned that my basal metabolic rate was 1,305 kcals per day. I know that once I share the complete before and after results from this challenge, that people are going to wonder if I changed my diet or my exercise routine at all, so I want to take a moment to touch on those topics. So I'm someone who used to struggle with emotional eating, and it's really important that I be able to eat whatever I want, whenever I want, and not feel like I'm dieting or restricting myself. So I never ever diet, and instead I focus on eating intuitively and follow a loose 80-20 rule of eating healthy 80% of the time and allowing myself to splurge 20% of the time or so. It took me over a decade to heal my relationship with food and stop yo-yoing between diets and overeating. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that sometimes building good habits means removing friction and doing less, not more. Which is why one of my favorite hacks for simplifying my meal planning routine is ordering from the sponsor of today's video, Factor. Factor delivers fresh, never frozen, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals straight to your doorstep that are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. And when I'm focusing on big goals and projects, sometimes the last thing I want to do is spend a ton of time and energy cooking and cleaning up. And because I'm trying to build and strengthen my muscles, one thing I personally love about Factor meals is that most of them have 30 grams or more of complete proteins, which is huge for supporting muscle repair and recovery, especially since I'm in my early 40s. Their meals are also made without refined seed oils, refined sugars, artificial colors, or sweeteners, so I feel good about what I'm eating, and my hard-to-please husband even likes them as well.
Wow, this looks fantastic. Now that you introduced me to Factor Meal, I realized that quite a few people at my work also eat Factor Meals. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a club.
And if you also want to make balanced eating easier for yourself, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use the code A to Zen FB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Again, that's code A to Zen FB50 at factor75.com for 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. And thanks again to Factor for sponsoring today's video. Now let's move on to my exercise routine, shall we? So as far as my exercise routine, aside from walking, I kept doing a 10-minute morning exercise routine called the Tibetan Rites that I've been doing for a few years now. And I actually made a 30-day challenge video about those exercises as well, so I will be sure to link to that video up here in the right-hand corner as well as down in the description box below in case you're interested in checking that out. But aside from that, I did weightlifting maybe once or twice during this entire challenge because number one, I was more focused on getting in my steps, and number two, because I got sick in the middle of this challenge.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay. No, the battery. Well, the good news is I think I look worse than I actually feel. So today is the 17th day of the challenge and it's almost 10 o'clock a.m. and I've been procrastinating about doing anything because honestly, I am, as you can see, a little bit sick today. I got some kind of cold that's like very mucusy and runny and yucky. And on top of that, my Aunt Flo came, which is just fantastic. But I thought we could just check my temperature really quick and make sure I don't have a fever. Turn this bad boy on. 98.4. We are good as gravy. Days like this are the days where I'm really glad that I have a walking pad that I can just take it easy and walk at my desk, and I don't even need to do high speed, even doing 2 miles per hour because it's so fun. I can literally just stand there, and if I'm lazy, just watch YouTube videos or listen to a podcast, and if I'm feeling productive, I'll actually get some work done. Even though I don't feel well, I actually am looking forward to getting my steps in, and I can tell you that's very different from going to the gym and say, oh, I'm gonna go for a run. But somehow walking is just so much more enjoyable and honestly manageable and practical. So let's do a little walking, shall we?
Now, you might be wondering, why not rest and take it easy when you're sick? But the truth is, like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm tired of making excuses, and I just really wanted to see this challenge through to the end, no matter what. The past few weeks, I've been reading a book about discipline and mental toughness called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And in that book, when he was training for the Navy SEALs, it was shocking how far he was willing to go, fighting through pneumonia, and even dislocating his knee in the process, and how he kept showing up despite all of that pain. Now, I'm no Navy SEAL wannabe, but this book actually did make me think quite a lot about my health and my relationship with exercise, because in the past, I was always a little bit embarrassed that I was just walking for exercise. Especially because I grew up playing tons of sports like basketball, softball, volleyball, swimming, and running track and doing hurdles. For a long time, I scoffed at the idea of walking for fitness, and I'm a bit ashamed to admit that, but it's true. But the problem is that as I've gotten older and fallen out of my exercise routine, I've noticed how my body, especially my knees, just can't keep up with high impact or strenuous activities anymore. And a bit of backstory here is that bad knees run in my family. My dad actually blew out his knees playing college football, which ended up with him getting kicked out of college. My younger sister blew out her knees playing softball, and one of my cousins blew out her knees playing basketball, which, by the way, my grandpa ended up filming that surgery on his old fashioned camcorder and traumatized all of us kids by forcing us to watch the entire thing. So, needless to say, when it comes to exercise, nowadays I'm really careful when it comes to my knees. And speaking of which, I ended up having a huge wake up call about that when we went on vacation to Greece a couple years back, because my knees were absolutely screaming when we were climbing up a mountain to go visit the birthplace of Zeus, to the point where I wasn't sure if I was going to make it up the mountain, let alone be able to get back down again. But what this challenge has made me realize is that walking is severely underestimated, and it blows a lot of sports and exercises out of the water. Because it's so easy, cheap, and accessible, almost anyone can do it. And I think the hardest part is going to be finding the time, but there are always going to be ways where you can sneak in steps here and there, like parking as far away as you can in the store parking lot, or taking laps around your kitchen island if you have to.
Okay, it is 7:17 at night, and today is the 7th day of the challenge. And this is the first time I'm worried I might not hit my steps because I'm only at 9,786 and it's already this late. So I guess I'm going to do some laps around the kitchen island.
Already by the middle of this challenge, I had started to notice small but powerful changes, like how I used to struggle when I would have to get up off of the floor sometimes, or when doing lunges at the gym. But then I became so much more stable and had more stamina in my legs and knees, and those things didn't bother me anymore. So realizing that went a long way in boosting my motivation, along with noticing all of the other positive changes, not just in the way my body looked and felt, but also in my improved mood, sleep, and energy levels. And I was shocked at just how much better and stronger I was feeling just by adopting this walking habit alone. But I will say that strength training is definitely something I want to up my game in going forward because I'm in my early 40s and I know it's super important for bone density and muscle mass as we age. And speaking of which, I think now is the perfect time to share my before and after results with you. And this is why I'm so glad that I decided to do an in-body scan at the beginning of this challenge, because even though I stepped on a scale to track my weight every single morning for 30 days, the numbers on the scale didn't even come close to capturing the most dramatic changes that happened in my body and also inside my mind. So like I said before, after that first in-body scan, I walked out of my doctor's office with a nice printout that showed a ton of cool data. But luckily, halfway through this challenge, I realized that my gym actually has an in-body scan machine that I could use instead of going to the doctor's office. Because if I wanted to do it at my doctor's office again, I actually had to call up the office and get his approval, get a doctor's order, and then schedule that appointment and go over there. But just in case you're interested in trying an in-body scan for yourself, I did want to mention that my doctor's visit was covered by my insurance, so you might check your coverage and see if you're eligible as well. So after keeping track of every single step I walked for 1 month using my clip-on pedometer, here is a graph of how many steps I walked for each of those 30 days. There were 2 days that I ended up walking over 20,000 steps, with the highest step count on day 11 at 27,012 steps. And the lowest number of steps I walked during this challenge was on day 13, when I walked 10,357 steps. And like I said, I also kept track of my weight every day, so here is the chart with those numbers, which as you can see did bounce up and down quite a bit, but with a consistent downward trend and my highest weight around 131 pounds and my lowest weight on the last day at 127 pounds. And just as a refresher, here are the results of my first in-body scan that I did before this challenge started and what I looked like, with my weight at 131.3 pounds, my skeletal muscle mass at 52.5 pounds, my body fat mass at 35.8 pounds, my total body fat percentage at 27.3%, and my basal metabolic rate at 1,305 calories. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, I'm sure. Here are the results from when I did a follow-up in-body scan at my gym on the day after this challenge, keeping in mind that when I weigh myself at home, it is always before I eat or drink anything for the day. So as far as my after results, my weight was 127.7 pounds, which means that I dropped around 4 pounds during this challenge. However, my skeletal muscle mass actually increased by almost 3 pounds, going up to 55.1 pounds. On the other hand, my body fat mass dropped to 28.4 pounds, meaning that I lost 7.4 pounds of pure fat, which I found quite shocking. And in the end, my total body fat percentage went from 27.3% down to 22.2%. And my basal metabolic rate, which is basically the minimum number of calories a body requires to keep itself alive while at rest, increased to 1,343 calories. So again, even though my weight only changed by 4 pounds, I actually lost almost 7.5 pounds of pure fat and added 3 pounds of skeletal muscle mass, which boosted my metabolism, meaning that I burn more calories at rest, just even if I'm not doing anything. And I was really shocked when I saw those numbers because I had no idea that walking alone would add that much muscle while also reducing that much fat. And I have to admit, I kind of had a mild mentee bee over it.
You have got to be kidding me. So I'm sitting in my car because my husband's on a work call, but I just got back from getting my final in-body scan test, and I ran inside to grab the paper that has my original results because I was a little bit foggy as to what I had for all of those. But now, as I'm comparing them, honestly, I have to say I'm a little bit mad at myself. Okay, maybe I'm more than a little bit angry. I'm actually furious with myself that it took me this long to stop making excuses and make walking a daily habit, because what do you mean I could have been looking and feeling this good if I had just started walking years ago? What do you mean? What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
And actually, this feeling reminds me a lot of how I felt when I finally started decluttering and letting go of all of the stuff that I had accumulated over decades and the passing of my parents and my grandparents and whatnot, and how I felt relieved and lighter and freer. But along with that unburdening came the realization that I could have been feeling so much better a long time before if I had just started earlier. I guess like the saying goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So I'm just not gonna beat myself up too much about this and just focus on really making this a part of my life and my health going forward.
I 100% did not expect for this challenge to be as life-changing as it was, and it's kind of funny because going into the final days of the challenge, I was surprised to find myself feeling really sad that it was almost over. But then I realized I don't have to stop. I can keep doing this if I want to because not only is it clearly good for me, but it's also something I enjoy doing. Not only did I lose fat and add muscle, but I slept better, felt more positive, and spent more quality time getting exercise alongside the ones I love. And again, one of the best things about walking is that you can keep doing it at almost any age, even in your 70s, 80s, 90s, or beyond. In fact, if you look at some of the longest lived people in the world, like the Okinawans off the coast of Japan, they are some of the longest lived people in the world, and their exercise of choice is walking. If you've made it this far, drop me a thumbs up emoji or comment with the word walk down in the comment section below if you'd like to see me make more videos about walking, or drop a comment to let me know if you have other 30-day challenge ideas that you'd like to see me try. And if you want to check out some of the other challenges that I've done on this channel already, here are a few you can choose from, or I'll see you next week. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.